Hey there, it is Tomster here on the behalf of Indestructible Productions once again, and we are continuing on onwards with building two guitars at the same time. Now we're starting to get around to one of my favorite parts of guitar building, which is finishing. But before doing any sort of finishing, you have to do a proper job at sanding. So I go through the grits, I work up to 320, so that's probably at this stage it's 180, 240, 320, and then I do a light sanding with 400 grit. And the backplate gets the same treatment. Now, I didn't film it here, but what I usually do in between sanding sessions, so I sand it all the way up to 320, and then I wet the grain. That way, the grain raises up, so that when you go back to sand it again, you're sanding off all that raised grain. Now I keep on doing that up until the grain doesn't raise anymore. That ensures a very, very good finish, no matter the finish that you're going to use. For these two guitars though, I'm using some guitar finishing oil from Crimson Guitars. And the way that I apply the first session of oil is with some, I think 1200 grit at this point, wet and dry. And I use that sandpaper to rub in the first layer, just to get an even better base to work up from. Now this kind of sands the guitar at the same time, clogging up a little bit of that grain, so you don't need to use grain fillers and stuff like that. And at the same time makes buffing a little bit easier. All the rest of the layers are going to go on great and are going to look better and better. It's just a little nifty trick to keep up your sleeve. Now I made a full tutorial on how to do this, and you can go and check that out in the little button up there. I go into a little bit more in-depth detail on how all this happens and why I do things. So be sure to check that out. Now, usually I would tell you to just avoid getting oil on your fretboard. But then again, there are so many guitars that have lacquered fretboards. Nobody's ever said that you can't lacquer a fretboard that isn't a maple one. So why not oil it? You're going to oil the fretboard anyways. You're just using a different product. Basically, this does pretty much the same thing. If not, gets an even better protective layer on top of the fretboard. So, you know, I don't see any fault with it. And I've been playing around with this guitar for a long while now, and it's still, you know, pretty much as good as new. Thing to keep in mind though is that you do really need to buff it out very well so you don't get any oil trapped in between the frets. I guess cleanup is probably one of the restrictions there, but I mean, you need to do that with oils anyway. But enough of me blabbering on this time around. I'm going to be back next week again, so be sure to check that out. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it and found it at least somewhat informative. Hit that like button, it helps out a whole lot. Comment down below if you have anything to say, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.